Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And unfortunately, there's not really a lot to talk about this week. Just kidding, all of you. Sometimes there's something like with truth is stranger than fiction. And Dr. Lopkin, you might agree with this one in terms of the Afghanistan crisis? If it was a movie, it would be I'm dating myself, American International. They used to make all these B movies. You would walk out. The president is AWOL. I mean, it's something out of like Escape from New York City or something, correct?
It really is. I mean, the president was holed up in Camp David, went to the White House to make a statement, flew back to Camp David, flew back to the White House, and now his aides are saying that he's going to be heading to Wilmington, Delaware shortly so that he can be at home.
It's, be careful what you wish for. We talked about it, all the libs living in, doing affluent liberals out in suburbia. Trump, and on this show we have said he has major shortcomings. And his actions in a lot of the pandemic episodes, January 6th was, let's say, more than less presidential. But when you look at who we have in the White House now, and all the people, well, Donald's not a nice guy. Well, who cares? He's not your boyfriend. He's not your best friend. Who cares? You got someone that's literally AWOL. Am I not correct? AWOL.
You're absolutely correct. And it absolutely amazes me because let's follow along what we've been able to find out about this decision process. Okay? The generals told him this was a plan that would fail. He did not consult our allies, who also have troops in Afghanistan, until the night before. He turned the planning over to the State Department, which decided the Bagram Air Force Base should be closed first because it wouldn't look good if the military stayed longer than the civilians. Every military expert has said this was a disaster. And Biden went, no, this is what we're going to do.
Something that really there's no words for it. And I'm not being melodramatic. I mean, this is the height of incompetency. He was never fit to be president. He's not fit now. It has to send some shivers down your spine, Dr. Lopkin, that what happens with Taiwan? What happened? I mean, this guy is not ready for prime time. And the other thing I'll put on the table, he's a coward. You effed up. You got to own it up. Man up, dude. Put your big boy pants on. I know you got, dementia and whatever. I had a headache this morning. But you don't run. I mean, he's running away. It's like starting a fire in your house and you run away and your kids are there. It's just bizarre. I mean, comment on it.
Now, this situation, I mean, first of all, it's so surreal that I'm still having a problem wrapping my head around this.
Oh, yeah, that's why there's no words for it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you have his speech in July saying there's no way you're going to see helicopters airlifting people off the embassy. This is not Saigon. And then a month later, you literally have the images that he said would never happen. You have China, who just today issued a warning to Taiwan, telling them, don't expect the Americans to back you up. We've lost all credibility with our foreign allies.
And deservingly so.
Yeah.
Deservingly so. I mean, we left. This is what's going to happen. I don't care how it's covered up. Leaving Afghanistan, that's a completely different argument, okay? But the incompetency, and also, I have to say, he was called Joe Lunch Pail, Uncle Joe, and all that crap, right? He's pretty much heartless. I mean, to let all those girls and people that helped us, women, what do you think their fate's going to be? I mean, I'm not saying we should have been there forever or anything, but man, you can't organize, and you went against every sane person from the military to the State Department on down because you felt, I don't know why, it was a gut, almost like a juvenile. Well, everyone else tells you not to run in the street, but you did it anyway. My God.
Well, I mean, let's take what you just said piece by piece. First of all, the idea of staying there forever. Okay, we had a few thousand troops in Afghanistan. Had we kept those troops there, okay, and I believe the number was actually approximately 2,600 troops.
With no one being killed in over a year and a half.
Right. We have 30,000 troops in South Korea that have been there for 70 years. Leaving a military presence does not mean you are in an active war. We still have troops in Germany and Japan. We've had a permanent military presence there since World War II. Leaving a military presence of, and I would say even, let's increase the number. Let's put 6,000 troops on the Air Force Base. You keep the base. You're not doing any nation building type mission. This base is there to gather intelligence and to keep the terrorists in line.
100% in agreement. The whole thing was political, and that's why I'm saying about being heartless, because it's all, just like the Dems always do, but they've now taken it to a new level. It was all theatrics. We're out of there by September 11th, regardless of how many people have to die. This is just a cold, hard fact.
Well,
it's not a joke.
Here's the thing. Biden wanted the September 11th deadline because that was going to be his legacy. He pulled us out of Afghanistan just short of 20 years. What a wonderful leader he is. Well, guess what? This is going to be his legacy, and it's not going to be what he thought. And here's the thing here. You keep talking about the fact...
You need to comment on one thing, Dr. Lopkin. Yep. This is important. Again, my point is, he did this all for politics. And I know he's Uncle Joe and Lunch Pail Joe, but he put politics ahead of human life. That is a fact.
Okay, here's the thing.
Yes or no?
He has always put politics. I'm talking about
right now.
No.
Right
he
now.
has. Just listen. He has always put politics in front of human life, especially in Afghanistan. It has come out that in 2008, when he was, I'm not sure if it was when he was running for vice president or when he was already vice president-elect, he wanted to do exactly what he just did. And when the advisors asked him, well, what about the women that would suffer for this? He was quoted as saying, F them, they're not our responsibility. This
yes,
is
and that is true. No, that is 100% true. If Trump said that, it's not even worth discussing. We all know it's a rhetorical question. I mean, that is heartless. I feel for the advisors. I feel how do the Americans and don't bullshit a bullshitter, okay? How do you think they say, oh, the Taliban's going to let America? Oh, get the F out of here. I mean, it's a disaster. How many actual Americans are going to get killed?
Just prior to us starting to record, I was watching a statement from the State Department. And it was the first time that they acknowledged that despite the Taliban saying they would let all Americans go and anybody who, there's a general amnesty. So if you help the Americans, you can get to the airport and go. The State Department has finally admitted that the Taliban is not living up to that. They are marking people for death. They have already killed women.
It's totally unbelievable.
And again, we've all seen the clip of the Biden press conference where the reporter asks him, "Do you trust the Taliban?" And he went, "Is that a real question? No, of course not." And yet, this entire evacuation plan depended on trusting the Taliban.
Yeah, but no, I don't think it was a plan. I think it's a last-ditch effort. In other words, you fucked up, and now you're relying on the guy that beat you up in the courtyard to ensure that your friends are going to, come to your aid. It's cover your ass, throw some shit against the wall. And do you know what Biden's doing now? He's going, well, I know he's in Delaware, but now he's doing a thing on COVID. Yes. I mean, even the dumbest person even MSNBC, by the way, Brian Williams, who has the intellectual capacity of like a squirrel, was on a show. I just happened to see the clip, and he was saying, "Oh, Biden did a great job here." The guy is dumber than rocks. And the guest on MSNBC, some ex, diplomat or something, said, "No, this is a disaster." I mean, even MSNBC can't cover for this shit.
We've talked about that for months. How long was the mainstream media going to be able to cover for Biden? And this blew it away. Every media outlet, MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the LA Times, they have all turned on Biden on this one. There is no way. And worse than that, I heard somebody say this on the air earlier. They said, "Yeah, the problem isn't that you lied to us. The problem is now we can never trust anything you say."
Well done, Dr. Lopkin. They could say the sky is blue or we're going to do this in another country. It's like, I really believe and I think this is a big chunk of America, like maybe 30% of people that voted for Biden didn't really like him, but thought, okay, Trump was an asshole, and there's a lot of stuff that you could support that on, right? But now you look at this guy, I don't think his credibility, the administration's credibility is gone. But how about the coward factor? I mean, America always had, you own up to your mistakes, you suck it up like a big boy or girl, and this guy's running around like a little wussy boy.
He has blamed everybody but himself. And it is amazing because there are people coming out of the administration leaking information to the press going, no. This is what happened. Everybody told Biden about this. Everybody warned him. He decided to do this on his own.
It's funny that you say that because you're absolutely correct. In fact, there was an analyst on, and they were saying half the shit he said since his presidency, he doesn't even believe. He's just, out there where, someone tells him to read stuff. This is the only thing he truly believed in. He believed it, like you said, back in 2008. And he went against all advice because he was dead sure, even though Gates said he hasn't been right in 40 years. And this is Biden being Biden. In other words, with no handlers, with no people carrying his, lunch pail for him. This is the brainiac we have in the White House. Am I not correct?
You're absolutely correct. And as you just alluded to, Robert Gates, Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush and Barack Obama. So he was working with both administrations, bipartisan, stated years ago that Joe Biden has been wrong on every foreign policy decision for 40 years. Well, apparently Joe decided to keep the streak going.
And he actually doubled down because when he was a senator, who gives a shit? He's president of the United States. Let's talk about the political ramifications. I am not a fan of Joe Biden. We all know that. And I picked a lot of fights with Donald Trump as well. Both of us have during the show. Politically, I say it would have to take a miracle. Not a miracle. It would take a lot to resuscitate him at this point. Midterms, goodbye.
The midterms are goodbye. not only at this point are the Republicans taking back both the House and the Senate, but it is a very strong possibility that the blowback of this will give them a veto-proof majority. And we know the Democrats are going to stonewall on investigating what went on. I have no doubt that if the Republicans do take both houses,
which they will,
with strong majorities, impeachment trials will start. And unlike Donald Trump, Biden is not going to have the support of the Senate to keep him in office.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, I don't want to harp on something, but character means a lot. Jimmy Carter made a lot of mistakes. He had character. I was around then. He effed up, but he owned it. The helicopter rescue, which you'd have to be like doing acid to think that would ever work. It didn't work. Okay. 8 helicopters are going to, okay, whatever. Okay. Do some more drugs now. But he owned up to it. He was a mensch,
Yes.
But the lack of character is appalling. First of all, he says this whole thing. It was Trump. It was this. It was, Billy Bob, the guy who gave me the hot dog down the street. But the buck stops here. Oh, come on. Come on.
No, taking responsibility for your actions does not mean blaming everybody else first.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. And we've used this line a lot on both this podcast, when we were on terrestrial radio. It goes back to Casey Stengel. How did all of this happen? It was a team effort. Because let's take a good look at American security at this very moment. You have Afghanistan, which is now a safe haven for terrorists. We already know Al-Qaeda is operating there. We know ISIS is operating there now. Afghanistan is a safe haven. We have an open border on our southern border for all
with a COVID epidemic.
Right. For all of these folks to come through. And on top of that, liberals have defunded local police. How safe
it's a trifecta, isn't it, Dr.
How
Lopkin?
safe do you feel now?
I don't feel safe at all. And there was always an illusion of competency. And I'll even go back to Jimmy Carter. There were people in charge you thought, probably true at that time. Look at the lineup he has. Who are these people? It's like Billy Bob from, they're all from Ivy League schools, but they've never worked a day in their life. They probably read some books on diplomacy. And even the unbelievable incompetency. How many Americans are in Afghanistan?
They don't know.
5 or 10.
They don't know.
That's 100% difference. It's not like 5,000 or 5,500. Okay, that's under. And then it could be up as many as 15,000.
It could be more than that. Depending on who you ask, the answer keeps changing. One reporter said the answer they've been getting at press conferences and through the media contacts has been about 3,000 Americans. When they talk to contacts in the Pentagon, the estimates have been as high as 30,000. They have no idea.
No, they have no idea. Yes, and the other thing, Dr. Lopkin, comment on this. A lot of these people that are stranded there aren't contacting the State Department. They're going to Congress. They have more faith in Congress people. And did you see the letter or the correspondence they got?
Yeah.
It was like, essentially, make it to the airport, and by the way, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, basically, that's
something like that. Like, okay, make your way to the airport, and by the way, kiss your ass goodbye. Have a good day.
Yeah, essentially that's it. Because they told these people, contact the State Department, and then they closed the embassy, so there was no one to contact.
But is it really elitism at its best? Like, those are just the unwashed masses, they're no longer, like we always talked about, liberals when you're no longer of use to them, you're no longer of use to them. Just, that's like Vietnam, whatever. Those troops, they're blue collar, they're minorities, F them. Isn't this the same kind of mentality only 50 years later?
It really is. I mean, but what really gets me is they keep talking about the visas. They can't let the Afghani folks that helped us into the country until they process the visas. Really? Where are the visas for the folks on the southern border?
There are no visas. They're being relocated all around the country, including Connecticut and everywhere else.
On the southern border, people are flowing in, no IDs, no visas, but the folks that we have records that we know who these people are and what they did for us, oh no, we have to process them properly. Are you kidding me?
Are you effing kidding me? And could it be just a little political, like the Cubans, stay where you are?
Right.
Do you think these people from Afghanistan are going to have a sign out in front of their house or wherever they're relocating? Joe Biden, our man. I highly doubt that.
No, definitely not. It is absolutely inconceivable that, and let's face this, again, blame for this, blame for what is happening in Afghanistan falls squarely on Biden. Previous presidents have screwed it up. Trump screwed up things in Afghanistan. Obama screwed up things in Afghanistan. George Bush screwed up things in Afghanistan. None of those were as bad as this.
Not even close.
No, not even close. And all of those.
But where's our milk? I'm sorry. Go ahead. My fault. Go ahead.
All of those errors were able to be dealt with. This one is just beyond all scope.
It's like something you couldn't make it up, Dr. Lopkin. I'm looking at the monitor now, and they have. We used to have heroes like Patton, MacArthur, so on and so forth. We got Miley Cyrus now as the head of the Joint Chiefs, who was more interested in whatever political correctness and whatever all the other crap they're talking about.
Yeah.
I wonder if half his medals probably came from like diversity training and who God knows what, affirmative action, certification. I mean, this guy's incompetent too. So it goes beyond Biden. We've been misled, and it started in Vietnam. We had amazing leaders, Eisenhower included, Patton, that launched D-Day without a computer, with the help of a computer. The logistics of that is unbelievable, right? And now we got Miley Cyrus and the other numbskulls that got it and lied to us and said, it's just like Vietnam. History repeats itself. Oh, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. No problem.
But here's the thing. You mentioned, the diversity training, and we talked about this several weeks ago when a report came out that said the Navy's been focusing so much on diversity training that they're not combat ready. Diversity training at its heart, all of these diversity programs, the whole point of them is to understand different cultures. They never understood the Afghani culture. And this is why the Taliban won. And let's make no mistake about this. This is not we left in a draw, or we left because the mission is over. We lost.
And yes, we did. And another thing, talk about training and a miscalculation of threats or just a misperception of threats. They actually listed on the State Department website like biggest threats, and do you know what they are now? This shows you how screwed up we really are and how scared everyone should be. Go ahead, Dr. Lopkin.
The top three threats. Number 3 was climate change. Number 2 was people who refused to believe Biden's election was legitimate. And number 1 was people who refused to wear masks.
Okay, can I ask you a quick question? How many of those 3 behead people and rape women? Please help me.
None.
Thank you very much. It's purely a binary decision. Yes, none. I've never. We're not going to get into the massing. We're not getting into all the other crap. But yes, do they behead people and do they sell women into slavery? I haven't seen that lately. Have you?
No, not at all.
There you go. So any final thoughts? This is a very depressing day.
It is. It really is. I honestly never thought I would see images like that again. And, let's be realistic about this. Again, Biden is responsible for what happened in Afghanistan, but the Democratic Party as a whole, the liberal left, and the media are responsible for putting Biden in office.
Exceptionally well done.
They were all talking about the fact, Trump doesn't respect women. We need somebody who respects women. Really? How do the million women in Afghanistan that just lost the ability to leave the house feel about Biden's respect?
And actually, to me, it actually really disturbed me because I feel for a young woman that grew up under our control, let's say, went to college, okay, had some rights. It's not about leaving the house. I'm talking like sold in to marriages with some fat slob who's twice your age. That's caring about women's rights. That's disgusting. And it should disturb anyone.
It should. We have already seen in the past several days a woman beaten and killed because she didn't wear a burqa.
Yes.
A woman killed because when the Taliban knocked on her door, she made them knock 4 times and they wanted her to cook a meal for the Taliban soldiers. She didn't answer the door fast enough and they killed her. This is reported by CNN.
There's no question about it. Again, how do you think this plays out? Here's what I think, and you tell me what you think to kind of tee off the ball. I think that many Americans, this is not going to end tomorrow. This is going to completely destroy any kind of commemorance of 9/11, the 20th anniversary. There will be Americans killed needlessly, completely out of complete incompetence and uncaring, something that liberals can never deal with, uncaring. You have no empathy for other people if they're not having sushi and Chardonnay with you, at the Beltway. And I think it's going to play out not in days, but weeks. What do you think?
I think it's going to play out longer than that. We already know for a fact that Biden has set August 31st as a deadline to get all Americans out of Afghanistan. The Pentagon, in a statement this morning, said they are not going to meet that deadline. So we're already looking at this going into September. The September 11th, that's going to be a day of mourning. That's not celebrating a victory. And Gold Star families have already been protesting that Biden should not show up at the 9/11 ceremonies. And this was before this weekend. Now, there's no way he should be able to show up.
Only Dr. Lopkin can do that. No, only you can. That I never thought about. Okay, that's always like, how should you say it, a low-hanging fruit. You rally, now you have your speech about 9/11, it'll never happen again, blah, 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 blah. I don't think Biden can show up. Maybe will, but how does that work? Help me out, Dr. Lopkin.
It doesn't work. If he shows up, you are going to hear protests. I predict that if he does show up, the audience will drown out anything he has to say with boos, catcalls, and yelling at him.
I agree with that. Welcome. And also, wait, one more thing, because you're 100% correct. Great that you brought it up. but you're talking about someone that's got severe dementia. He's not going to just laugh it off or say you have a right of your. He's going to go and get belligerent because he's got senility. I really believe that he's going to get flustered at best.
I'm sure he'll get flustered, and we've seen in press conferences when he gets flustered, he lashes out. So we'll see if his So we will see if his handlers can, hold him back. But no matter how the Democrats try to spin this, and you'll notice most of them, with the exception of the morons in the squad, most of them have stayed quiet. But they're going to have some sort of investigation, and they will drag their feet. The Republicans will not let this go. So I think you are going to see this drag on into next year's election cycle. This could be the end of the Biden agenda, because they are not, first of all, the Republicans are not going to let this go. The clip of Biden saying this would never happen and the footage of it happening is probably going to be in every campaign ad against every Democratic congressperson.
No question.
Because they're going to be saying, this happened on your watch. You let this guy, take office knowing what you knew. We need to get rid of you. So this is going to go well into next year's election cycle. And, it's not going to go away anytime soon. And it's also affecting every other foreign policy decision. Angela Merkel has already said the Americans obviously cannot be trusted to have our backs. Boris Johnson said the same thing. Biden made a comment in his speech that, if Al-Qaeda starts up again, if the Taliban, we'll just put together a stronger coalition. There's not going to be a coalition. Nobody is following us.
He also said something about, now we can defend over the horizon. Okay. Yeah, smoke another joint, please. You're killing me. Yeah, right. Okay. You couldn't do it when you had boots on the ground. You're going to do it, over the horizon. And where do these pilots, if they get shot down, what happens to them? Yeah, it ain't going to be a good day for them, is it?
No, it really wouldn't. He has destroyed any credibility we had on the international stage. Russia and China have both rushed in to fill the void. They've got embassies in Afghanistan, so obviously they've got an agreement with the Taliban. So my big fear, how all of this ends up, is another massive terrorist attack on U.S. soil.
And that is the absolute end of the Biden administration. I think this is the end. Being older than you, I remember as a kid, or you get in newsreels that, in 68, when Johnson made the choice, I don't know if it was a choice, I think he had no option, to not run when they were, at the White House, all the protesters, LBJ, how many kids are you going to kill today? I can't believe it, but only 8 months into an administration, I think it could be check, please. Am I wrong?
It very well
8 months.
Be.
I mean, that's crazy.
We also have to look at another possibility, which is that Biden is actually sicker than we think he is, and he might not actually live through his administration. Something that leaked out when Biden came back to the White House. His aides told him he needed to stay at the White House, not go back to Camp David. It wasn't Joe Biden that made the decision to go back to Camp David. It wasn't his aides that made that decision. It was the First Lady. Jill Biden said he has to go back to Camp David.
You mean Dr. Biden? You mean
yes.
Dr. Biden?
So what does she know that the rest of us don't? The only thing she could know is his health.
Let me get off last point. And I've talked about this with other people. I think she's an opportunist, and I'll go out on that limb, because if you love your husband and you know he's got severe, why would you set him up for this? Wouldn't you just tell him, Joe, you were vice president? It's almost like she's power hungry. This guy's not ready for prime time. He's not going to make it 4 years. He's going to go down as one of the worst presidents ever, completely incompetent. And you, as his wife, said, oh, yeah, it's a great idea, Joe. Go for it. Your last comment.
Right. Allegedly, when Biden was deciding to run in 2016, the family said this would be too much at this time. Don't do it. They obviously had the power to stop him from running. They chose to let him go. So, yeah, I don't know if they were kidding themselves about his capabilities, or he just wanted the legacy so badly that they didn't have the heart to tell him no. But either way, it did not work out well for him.
Last comment is, I'm watching on the monitor General Mark Miley Cyrus, and I know, Biden has a lot to blame, but when you have, we already talked about it, I get it, but when you have an incompetent Joint Chiefs of Staff that's more interested in critical race theory, that's one of the outcomes as well. Am I not correct? He is not responsible, Biden is, but you got an incompetent moron as the Joint Chiefs have said. This is not General Pat.
There have already been calls for all of the Joint Chiefs to resign, for the folks at the State Department to resign. There have been calls for Biden to resign. Whether or not they
from Democrats, from Democrats.
Yes, from Democrats. So we'll see how it all plays out. Who actually gets blamed, who loses their job. But no matter what happens in the days to come, the big losers are the folks of Afghanistan and the citizens of the United States of America.
Agree. Now, thank you. That's a great edition of Carnivore Bites, and we're getting a lot of headway, aren't we, Dr. Lopkin?
We are, and you can hear the podcast every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopkin. We'll see everyone next week. Take care.